If you've ever wanted to paint your FAL like it served in the Rhodesian Brush War, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Guys, like and comment. The comment section is particularly out of control the last couple sessions. Get in there, find out why it's so important. I will not try to control you. YouTube will tell you to be nice, but do your thing. I can't control you guys. If you guys are looking to support the channel, the biggest support of the channel right now is Big Daddy Unlimited. Big Daddy Unlimited is like the Costco of the gun world. 99 cents to get in for the first month. After that, price increases. Now, is it worth it? Well, it depends if you buy products. Again, they're gonna be cheaper with the little paywall right there. I think it's worth it. Get in there if you like it. They support us. LEX Ammunition for all of your ammunition needs. And of course, Vertex for gloves, bags, plaid, all that kind of good stuff. Ladies, gentlemen, and my often forgotten, but not by me, KC-135s, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking and revisiting a very interesting firearm, and that is going to be the DSA OSW, Operational Specialist Weapon. So it's made by DS Arms. The question is, what is my relationship with DSA before we begin this review? So I'm always very straightforward on that. This was given to me quite a while ago. Again, we have a review on it a little bit, a little over a year ago, I would say. Since then, I have gotten 2 other FALs from them. So understand that I have received 3 firearms from them. No ammunition. Ammunition is all covered for by me and my Patreon guys. Thank you guys. And beyond that, no exchange of money or anything like that. Pretty common kind of deal, except for the ammunition on how I run my reviews. So there's no, pay for play or anything like that we do here. Just so you guys are aware, I'm very unbiased on my reviews despite being given weapons, just how I kind of run things. If you guys are new to the channel, maybe from that April Fool's video. In any case, let's go ahead and let's get into it. If you're not familiar with the OSW, that's okay. It is a variant of the FAL. Now, if you're not with familiar with the FAL, well, you're definitely missing out. So the FAL is what many call the right arm of the free world, because it has served in so many capacities all over the world. So this is like your standard model that comes from DSA with a little camo paint job on it. But the FAL served with over 90 countries. It's fought itself, it's fought against others. And I would say it's probably among the most prolific battle rifles to have ever served in any country ever. It's chambered in .308. And, we're not forgotten weapons, so we're not going to get too kind of deep into the weeds on this, other than to say that the FAL is a venerable, proven, reliable firearm. And that brings us to our OSW. OSW being a shortened version with a couple things that have been changed. Most specifically, the handguards, barrel length, and a couple other things, including the stock. So let's get into it. Let's do what we always do with our firearms. We're going to go tip to butt, and we're going to talk about this weapon. Is it worth it? Does it make sense? I understand that there's a lot of kind of renewed interest in this particular firearm after it's been featured in a few video games, and that's cool. I got into firearms because of video games. GoldenEye way back in the day. Nothing wrong with that. I think Escape from Tarkov has it. I know Call of Duty probably has it in some capacity or another. But in any case, how is the real actual firearm? Let's get into it. Okay, starting from tip to butt like we always do, we have our muzzle device. Now, I want to be very clear that the muzzle device currently on this rifle is not your typical muzzle device that comes from OSW. Typically, you have some type of birdcage flash hider or some type of 3-pronged or 4-pronged flash hider that eliminates the flash. And there is a lot of flash because this rifle is chambered in .308. So the barrels that fire .308 are meant to be much longer. Typically, you want at the very least 16. 11 inches is the length of the barrel on this particular weapon. Because of that, you have a lot of unburnt powder. When that projectile leaves the barrel, you have a lot of energy that could have driven that projectile being driven out of the weapon. Because of that, you typically have a little bit more recoil than you deal with on a longer FAL variant, like the one that I just showed you guys. Because of that, I chose to kind of mess with the design a little bit and throw a very aggressive muzzle brake on there from Sons of Liberty Gunworks in order to see if that could help tame this. Tame it, it definitely did tame it. However, the cost was at the people around me. This is a obnoxiously loud and obnoxiously concussive weapon. It's incredible how how much louder this was compared to other 308s that I fired on the particular range that I was shooting on. A lot of people made note of it, that it sucked, and they were not happy with me shooting this. But in any case, so the muzzle brake is not a good option. I went with the same solution that the Russians did with the HK-12, which was to throw a large muzzle brake on there to control the recoil. It does, however, at the cost of everybody next to you. Now, in the case of this, it's not such a big deal. This isn't really a military weapon per se, but for the AK-12, much bigger deal because you're working in close proximity to teammates. You don't want to, fuck them up with concussion and all that kind of stuff. So the muzzle device, yes, works, not the best. Now, a lot of people note that this is also a host for suppressor, so a Sandman L will fit on this. However, as configured from DS Arms, this will not suppress, even at the lowest gas setting, expelling the most amount of gas, because it just increases the back pressure so much that the weapon would kind of take itself apart. So the rear takedown lever would depress and it would come into two parts. So if you want to have a FAL this short that you can suppress, either use some type of flow-through technology suppressor like an OSS suppressor, or talk with DSA and ask them about having a different sized kind of gas port in order to make a suppressor work on it. In any case, that is how that particular muzzle device is going. We beat that to death. Let's move on from there. Next thing we're going to talk about is the barrel. So the barrel is 11 inches, 1 in 10 twist, pretty standard, pretty much what you want. I will say that FALs aren't particularly known for their accuracy. Typically, they're known to be anywhere from 3 to 6 MOA, pretty standard for a battle rifle. Battle rifles aren't particularly accurate weapons. However, I have been very surprised and impressed with the accuracy that I've gotten out of DSA arms. And not just DSA, any very well-built FAL with a good barrel would typically do a little bit better than that. In general, I'm getting, with good ammo, around 2 MOA, somewhere right in there, with surplus around 2.3 MOA or so, which seems pretty ridiculous to a lot of people out there who are used to shooting ARs and stuff. But for the FAL, it's doing pretty well. It's important to note that the FAL is not a precision platform. So if you're looking to build a precise semi-automatic weapon, I'd highly recommend looking at some other 308 options, such as the LMT, their MWS system, or CAC with their SR25s. There are much better systems that are more accurate than the FAL. That's not kind of the point of these particular builds. They're battle rifles. And when it comes to that, they're absolutely what we'd like to call minute man. They can absolutely impact those targets that you need it to. That are within the range of this particular barrel length. So they work fine for that. And again, I've been happy with the accuracy just for people who want to really be able to punch holes through holes. You're not going to be doing that with this particular model. Now, we do run into a couple issues. InRange, or it might have been Forgotten Weapons, did a very good video on barrel lengths in 308 versus barrel lengths in 7.62x3.9, noting that the 7.62x3.9, which is a round used by AKM, AK-47, that type of weapon, does very well when you shorten the barrel. 308, not so much. 308 does not do well at all. So the more you shorten the barrel, the more, of course, velocity you lose. Now, specifically, when you get down to an 11-inch barrel, you have about an average velocity with about 150 grain projectile of around 2350, which is still cooking pretty hard, especially at the 150 grain projectile. A lot of people have asked me and said, well, at that barrel length, 11 inches, a AK would have more energy than this particular weapon system. And that is false. So when you take a AK and you cut it down to, let's say, 11.5, so giving it about another half inch over this particular weapon system, you have an approximate muzzle velocity of around 2150 or so. So a solid 200 feet per second less. With a lighter projectile, specifically as opposed to 150 grains, you're looking at about 122 grains. So you definitely have a lot more what we'd call foot-pounds. Is that specifically equal to better ballistics? Not specifically, but again, my kind of expertise is not ballistics, or terminal ballistics, I should say. I'll let Paul Harrell or somebody much more suited than me take a stab at that as far as the actual ballistics, other than to say that the round coming out of the OSW is energetic, to say the least. Is it a good solution? I don't specifically think it is. So the 308 this short really doesn't take advantage of what the 308 is good at. The 308 is good at launching projectiles long range, taking those longer shots. That's the whole point of the 308 projectile. I have read a couple reviews where people have very passionately argued for the OSW as a CQB type weapon. And I do not believe that it suits that role well, due to the fact that it's both heavy, the ammunition is heavy, you carry less ammunition, and the amount of concussive blast and flash that you get out of it. To tame that, you need some type of larger suppressor if you want it to work indoors, and even then you still get a lot more than you get from 5.56. Ballistically energetic compared to 5.56, doubtless. That being said, 5.56 is absolutely devastating at close ranges with those good loading. So I don't believe that this weapon is suited well to CQB. And we'll kind of talk more on that later about as far as what it's good at. So the gas valves are really cool in the FALs. They can easily be adjusted to letting off more gas or bleeding off less gas, and you can precisely tune your weapon to either work with certain ammunition to be as soft recoiling as possible, or as the weapon gets muddy and it gets mud in it, you can close that port up and you can really push all that gas through the system to power through a lot of that debris that might otherwise choke up other weapons. It's for this reason that the FAL is a particularly reliable weapon system. It's been known to just power through a variety of environments with no problem. When it comes to reliability, even on the short-barreled OSW variant, it is very capable of powering through any type of debris that you could possibly throw at it. I put it very much so on the same playing field as the AK as far as reliability is concerned. They are short-stroke gas piston operated, and that is a particularly reliable and robust system. These weapons will run through hell and back, and you likely will not have any issues with them. Now, when it comes to issues, because we're talking about DSA, and I'm going to bring it up. Now, personally, I have not had any problems with any of my DSA weapons that I have fired or had work on or anything like that. Except to say that when I first got this weapon, I did break the first extractor in the first 60 rounds. Now, since then, I've fired a couple thousand through it and it's been fine. I'll put that up to a fluke. Things happen. But a lot of people have noted online that they've had serious issues with QC. Now, I will say that DSA has been quick to fix those issues, and there haven't been problems with those people. But I'll note quickly that despite my success that I've had with rifles, I am no stranger to the fact that many of these rifles are likely handpicked and worked on prior to being sent out to me. So as far as the QC goes, I think that there may be some QC issues over at DSA. That being said, they're true to the word and they will work on and fix your gun if there are issues. So when you get them, put rounds through and make sure they're working good. If they're not, DSA will take care of you. Kind of goes from there. So what we have here on the front of the weapon is a quad rail, and not just any quad rail, but a very robust quad rail. I feel like I could beat somebody to death with this OSW if, like, worst comes to worst, I feel like I could kill somebody with it. I don't feel that way with many weapons, like the AR-15. I feel like if I hit somebody with it, I'd probably end up bending the handguard or something like that. This is a very solid weapon. I feel like if I hit somebody with this, it'd be fine. The other person would be in bad shape. But in any case, at any point on the quad rail, it is stable enough to mount a laser device, so like a PEQ-15. PEQ-15 being an IR laser IR illuminator for shooting with night vision. Now in this case, I opted to put the PEQ-15 on the side with a pressure switch is just ghetto taped to the top right there. I have rubber rail covers on the quad rails to make it a little bit more comfortable. That way I don't get that cheese grater effect that you typically get from quad rails. And then on the opposite side, I have a mod light. Now, as far as why I didn't run a dual switch, due to trying to get away from switches, I have a simple clicky cap on this particular mod light. You can see right there, we have that, boop, boop. So we have our mod light. If you're not familiar with them, they are excellent, excellent lights. I have it on a offset that puts it at the correct height for a PEQ-15 mounted on an AR-15, but that puts it at the correct height to hit that light with my thumb right there. So that is how I run that weapon. So I have my thumb up top. Given the height of my optic, my thumb doesn't get in the way. I have my pressure pad on the PEQ right back there. So if I need to activate my laser, I can do that. Of course, switching over to IR. That way I can work with night vision and that type of thing. So that is how I have that particular quad rail set up. All right, moving back from there, a good innovation on the FAL has been the folding charging handle. I've been a huge fan of the folding charging handle. This allows the weapon to be slimmer, to not catch on as many things, and I absolutely love it. So the charging handle is very cool design. As you can see on the FAL, it does lock back on a closed bolt, and if I insert my magazine again, I can simply hit the bolt release, and it drops the bolt with some authority. You can see there's a lot of spring pressure there. Again, this thing powers through just literally everything. So when it comes to the controls are actually fairly forward-thinking on the FAL, especially for the time at which it was designed. Now you can see we have our bolt release right there. Now to kick the magazine out, it is a little bit different from a typical FAL design. This one has an extended magazine release, so that way I can use my trigger finger and hit it. Now with the FAL, it's much like the AK where you need to rock it into place. So you can see right there. So again, kick it out and then rock it into place. This is in stark contrast to the older ones where I typically use my thumb to hit that magazine release and pull it out. I think it's much faster to use my trigger finger to remove that. And as far as FALs go, magazine changes are actually pretty quick. Now that being said, still takes a little bit of work just like you would with an AK where you have to rock it into place and kind of work on that type of stuff. But another good thing is that because the charging handle is on the left side, that allows me to more easily work through a variety of malfunctions while keeping my hand on fire control, and that's what I prefer. Some AK designs have done this, but most puzzlingly, after they came out with the FAL, they later developed the FNC, has a right-sided charging handle. I understand why, ingressive debris and stuff, but the FAL works so well with that left-handed charging handle, I wish they would have kept that to some extent or another. Now, on the bolt itself, they are over-engineered, well-built. This one has a sand cutter, so it can power through even more debris. Again, the FAL is just a very robust, reliable design. You won't have any trouble with it. Now, moving back to the magazines, there are several different sizes of magazines, anything from 10 all the way up to 30. Most typically, you see the 20 rounders. They are the most typical, they're very reliable. That being said, I have had some very good success with the 30 rounders from DSA. I know not everybody has, and they are kind of comically large, but that being said, the 30 rounders do work. It's just a lot of weight. 308 weighs a lot compared to 5.56, and a 30 round magazine is really gonna weigh you down over time compared to using like a 20 round. So I typically stick with the 20 rounders. They also don't extend down as much. It's easier to get into prone with them. Because those 30, it really pushes the gun high off the ground and you want to be able to get low if you actually chose this particular weapon to use in a serious manner. So moving from there, let's talk about more of the controls. We have the safety right here. Pretty simple, very AR-like, not quite as ergonomic. You can see we have a saw style grip, which is pretty typical of the grip angle that you typically see on FALs. So on this more classic FAL, again, you can see that very aggressive angle that they have. You guys know that I prefer the more shallow angles on my ARs, and that's absolutely true for any weapon system. That being said, it's not that big of a deal. I think people make too big of a deal on it, and I understand I nitpick on things, but understand I can shoot with any grip angle and I'm perfectly fine. I just kind of adjust to it. But the problem with the FAL is that when you have this thing shouldered, it is, or it can be, a little bit more difficult to hit that safety compared to something like an AR. So when you have that thing shouldered, again, it's just a little bit more of a reach, not as easy or as intuitive as you'd see from something like the AR-15. Now, we've avoided it for long enough. We're gonna talk about the trigger. So the trigger is a standard FAL type trigger from DSA. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna ghost it together. We're gonna go ahead and put on some little Unchained melody, play that softly, and we're gonna feel this trigger together. All right, getting right on there. So putting some pressure into it. I immediately have quite a bit of pressure, traveling about 2, 3, 4 millimeters. It's getting heavier, heavier, 5, 6, gritty, 7, release. It's about a solid 8, 9 pound trigger approximately, which is pretty typical of many magazine-fed battle rifles of the time. Let's go ahead and try that one more time. Okay, into it. Yeah, about the same. Next time. Nice. Okay, let's check the reset. God, I wish this thing was full auto. All right, letting it forward about a millimeter, 2 millimeters, 3. Nice positive click. It definitely springs your finger back into place. I feel that. All right, now when you press it from the reset, it's about a 5 pound pull. So once you get into this gun, you get past that initial pull, you take about a solid 3 or 4 pounds off the trigger. So once you start actually running it, you can run it decently fast. Understand that it is a long trigger pull, a long reset. It's just something that you're gonna deal with on many of these older kind of designs. And that's where newer designs like the SCAR and AR-10 type platforms or SR-25 type design platforms just perform better compared to these older ones. As much as I love the FAL, its trigger is somewhat lacking. All right, moving from there. Now DSA has come up with a lot of really cool things. I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with DSA, but I've had nothing but good things to say about them. We have the railed top cover right here. Great design, very solid lockup. I've had no issues with mine. My return to zero has been perfect. I've never had any of my zeros shift in my optics. I've been making shots 200, 300, 400 with this rifle, no problem. Now, on this particular one, just to talk a little bit about the setup, I have a T-Rex Arms offset, which is what I prefer for my offsets typically. And the Arisaka is really good as well. With a Delta Point Pro, I picked that simply because I have quite a bit of them. I've been really assessing these quite a bit the last few months or so. So I have that offset right there. And then as my main optic, I have an Elcan 1.5 and 6 power. So it does either 1.5 or it can go to 6 power with a simple throw of the lever. And again, we'll probably talk about this optic at some point in the future. The Elcans are pretty cool. I have this zeroed for 300 and the BDC lines up pretty perfectly. This one does have a BDC specific to the Scar H with a 13-inch barrel. So it's a little bit off for this one, but it's close enough where I can make it work. Now, the reason I have the offset dot, even though I have 1.5, is 1.5 is doable, but not great. So at close range, the offset is just absolutely perfect for making those quick shots. Rolling the gun over is just a really quick process as opposed to shifting up to the top. There are, of course, pros and cons to that, and we'll get into that in a different video on top-mounted red dots versus offset later. All right, going to the back right here. I'm not forgotten weapons, but here's our takedown lever right there. Release that, hinges right there, and you can pull out everything, clean everything out. No big deal there. It works fine. You can clean the rifle. It's served everywhere. Of course, it's great. Okay, we have our sling swivel right here at the back. This is the one thing that kind of lacks on the OSW is your ability to kind of mount the sling at different locations because you don't have a forward sling swivel. So you either have to add one of some type or kind of jerry-rig and figure something out. In this case, I am running this in a 1-point configuration with the Echo 9.3 sling that I talked about earlier. Love these guys' slings. They put out some great stuff. So right here at the back, we have our para folding stock. Nothing but good things to say about this. You can fire this weapon with the stock folded and it works perfectly fine. I don't know why you'd want to. Maybe you're doing some dirty car work, but it works. I love the para stock. You can, of course, add any variety of different stocks out there and 4 stocks, but I like the classic look of either the para stock or, of course, the even more classic typical FAL stock. So definitely different things that you can add out there. So let's talk for a minute about the sights. The sights that come with the FAL, in my mind, are awesome. Typical PEEP type sights, and they're fairly accurate. I've seen people making impacts out to 300, 400 with those. Again, it's going to be up to you when it comes to that, and understanding that the FAL does have some limitations when it comes to just its overall accuracy compared to other weapon systems that are out there. But that is our FAL. So I guess a better question is what role does the OSW fill? Well, it fills a role of being fun as hell. That being said, I keep getting drawn back to it, so I can't say too many bad things. Now, on this particular weapon, I have the gas setting dialed almost all the way open, and it is a incredibly gentle weapon to shoot. It is so easy to control. I can't say enough good things about how easy it is to keep this thing on target. Again, the only bad thing is that everyone around you absolutely hates you. If you're using this solo, let's say you use this as like a bug out gun, right? On a ranch or out in the forest, the size of the report from the weapon, how loud it is going to give you away. The size of the fireball is a huge problem that is going to give you away. So I think to make this a more effective weapon, you need to tune it to use a suppressor. And again, that's a reason why I think a 13-inch barrel is going to be better, give you a little bit more dwell time, as well as using a little bit more of that powder and then a suppressor to tame some of that fireball. Because otherwise, you're just going to telegraph your position to everybody. So OSW, freaking awesome, love them. I think that there are some shortcomings to it, but ultimately, I think that this is a really cool rifle. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. As cool as the FAL is, and I'm going to take this to a class with Haley because I just want to see him not be happy with me. Just disappointed in me at all times. But get training. Training is what matters. So we have tons of great trainers out there. We have Cogworks, we have Bear Solutions, we have Haley Strategic, who is not my disappointed dad, Pat McNamara, Larry Vickers, all these guys with all this knowledge and experience, and they can give it to you. You just got to take a class from them, and it's absolutely worth the money because skills are something that you always have. Equipment, technology is cool, but it's all about you. Remember that. Ladies and gentlemen, love you guys. Thank you for watching. And as usual, I've got nothing else for you. All right, last thing for you guys. So obviously I'm back now, back in this whole COVID business. We're all getting a little stir crazy maybe. So take this time to not veg out and not to watch Netflix, but take some time to expand your horizons. What I mean by that is try something you haven't done before. And I know it's a little harder being at home, but let's say you've always wanted to try some gymnastics moves. Maybe start working on your physical health and seeing if you can do those. I've always sucked at Pilates, but guess what? It's important to have a very strong core. So I'm working that a lot more in order to just up my overall fitness level and try something that I haven't done before. I'm also trying to read up on different topics and trying to expand my horizons. Again, the most interesting people you ever meet are not people who are closed-minded, but are people who have a wide variety of knowledge on a wide variety of subjects. I fucking love guns, guys. But you know what? I read about a lot of other stuff besides firearms because life is all about getting all that knowledge. Guys, love you guys. Hope you guys like some of this little advice that I give you. It's just my random musings, but I appreciate you guys so much. Stay sane out there. Do some good things. Be a good neighbor and be a good community member. And that is all I can ask of you guys. And if you've gotten this far, the very last thing I want to say is a big thank you to my Patreon. Heartfelt from the bottom of my heart, thank you for helping support my channel. Cameras, lights, hard drives, like I always say, things always fail on me, and you guys directly support this channel. All the money from Patreon directly supports the channel and gets better equipment. It makes this channel better. Production quality is super high up. I can't always do super high quality videos because sometimes I'm out and I'm gone somewhere, and sometimes I just want to make sure I get videos out. But I can't stress this enough how much I thank you guys. Get in there. It's about $5, $10, anything helps per month. Love you guys. Take care of yourselves. Be good. I've got nothing else now, for real.